Jordan, you've built a powerhouse agency, not just with growth, but with retention. And that's quite honestly what caught my ear. So, my audience is mostly real estate agents and brokers who spend a ton of time chasing leads, especially new ones, ads, all that good jazz. And I think they forget that the real business is in repeat and referral business.
I think the key with retention is we have to ensure that we have hyper understanding of why people actually retain in the first place. And delivering a good service is just a standard. And this applies to just all business logic in general. Delivering a good service is baseline. If you deliver the promise that you said that you are going to give. So I'm going to generate leads for a real estate agent, or a real estate agent is going to, sell a house or get, whatever it is they're promising. Then we'll have dinner, we'll take them out, we'll build really strong relationships with them. That makes a huge difference in retention. What we will also do is at that point, that peak satisfaction, we will trigger a referral request. When a client gives you a referral, they feel more inclined to stay with you themselves because it feels like they have now recommended you to everybody else in their circle. We make it very candid. It's very simple. There's 3 different metrics that we're looking for. It's NPS, a Net Promoter Score, which is how likely are you to recommend us to someone else. There's CSAT, which is customer satisfaction score, how satisfied are you with our service, and then there's CES, which is customer effort score, which is how hard is it to work with us. These are like out of 10s, and then the final question we ask is just, is there anything else you want to let us know? So those are 3 like globally recognized statistics, and it allows you to benchmark against how other people are doing. But it also, for us, if they put anything less than an 8 on any of those things, that triggers either an account manager or client success manager to reach out to the client and be like, hey, I saw it was a 7, and it will go through frequently asked questions about the products, the core ICPs, any USPs that they have, a very deep analysis. It's about 15 different points, a very, very deep analysis. It's like 5 pages of the business itself that has been written with the help of AI, but it probably takes about 3 hours for every client to build it out. But it's like the ultimate context document for anything you want to do with AI. Most people, when they're going to do something like, create a custom GPT, they're like, this is my business, this is what I do, research me and figure it out, this is my website, blah, blah, blah. But there's no depth of like marketing knowledge and understanding, and that's the thing that you're missing, that personal context of like, what are the specific nuances that make this service.
Before we begin the podcast, I have one small favor to ask. If you could hit the subscribe button so that we could reach more real estate agents every single week. Thank you.
Jordan, you've built a powerhouse agency, not just with growth, but with retention. And that's quite honestly what caught my ear. So, my audience is mostly real estate agents and brokers who spend a ton of time chasing leads, especially new ones, ads, all that good jazz. And I think they forget that the real business is in repeat and referral business. So you've dialed in systems that keep clients around for the long haul. I heard you break some of it down with Darren a couple weeks ago. But what are some of the systems and philosophies you've used inside of your agency that keep clients sticking? And how can real estate professionals apply it in their business?
Good question. So I think, retention is the most important thing. Everyone's always focused on new client acquisition and getting new business in, but the LTV piece is let's talk about as agencies first, I suppose, and then expand into real estate.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Does that work?
That works.
Okay, so I think it will be symbiotic between the two, really. I think the key with retention is we have to ensure that we have hyper understanding of why people actually retain in the first place. And delivering a good service is just a standard. And this applies to just all business logic in general. Delivering a good service is baseline. If you deliver the promise that you said that you are going to give. So I'm going to generate leads for a real estate agent, or a real estate agent is going to, sell a house or get, whatever it is they're promising. That's just a given. That's baseline. We all have to deliver a good service. And so people think that if they deliver a good service, that automatically means that they're going to retain. It doesn't. What you're actually retaining for is being irreplaceable in the sense that you are fully integrated in the businesses that you're working with. So you go above and beyond what the expectation was for your service. In an agency instance, you might be offering, let's say, a lead gen service, but that might materialize into you getting involved into what the back end looks like, consulting on the numbers, consulting on the sales process, getting involved in the actual data tracking, getting involved in other parts of the business that feed into the success of the ads but aren't directly your responsibility. And so there are many ways that we can do that depending on what kind of agency you run. But we want to be thinking about how can I get involved in more of the solution. I think that the easiest way to think about this is when you're working with a business or when you're working with a client, you're going to feel friction points throughout that relationship. And most of the time, most agencies and most businesses will look at that friction as, oh, well, that's just their problem. That's just their thing. Instead, flip the switch and think, how can I solve that problem for them? And how can I become more embedded in the issues that they are facing as a business? So we're irreplaceable from that front. So I suppose that's one part of retention, which is like go above and beyond so that you're always surprising them. And you're also irreplaceable because they're like, well, he does this and he does that and they do this. And that would be very difficult for us to find someone else to do. The second piece is knowing that agencies, and also it will be in the real estate industry as well, it's really just a relationship game. It's a game of building great, strong bonds with people, and also being able to break the barrier of like that, that professional boundary. So for us in the agency, we always make the effort the minute we have a client hit what we call peak satisfaction. It normally happens around 2 months in working with a client. It's when we haven't just got the initial stage results, but we've gone above and beyond. And they're really impressed with what we've got going on. There's a couple of things we do in that instance. Number one, we try and arrange a dinner, so a date within the next 3 months where we'll either fly out to them, because we're a UK-based agency, but we have most of our clients in the US. But we'll fly over to the US, we'll meet them, we'll have dinner, we'll take them out, we'll build really strong relationships with them. That makes a huge difference in retention. What we will also do is at that point, that peak satisfaction, we will trigger a referral request. So at that point, we will ask for referrals, and I think there's this, and I don't have hard data to prove this, but just through getting quite literally hundreds, if not thousands of referrals over the past almost 10 years now. When a client gives you a referral, they feel more inclined to stay with you themselves because it feels like they have now recommended you to everybody else in their circle. And so there's something intrinsic in them that then this switch that turns on that's like, okay, these are my people now, I'm sticking with them. So you want to get referrals from clients, not just because you're getting more money from them and you're expanding the business, but because you're also then just deeper embedded into the relationship itself. They see you getting results for the people they referred. They then reflect on themselves and what they could be doing differently. So there's all great things to come from that. I think there's one other thing worth mentioning, and it's every single month we do customer satisfaction surveys. It's a very simple thing that many people just miss. But we used to do this autonomously because we wanted to get the really raw data, but then we found actually it didn't give us much tangible stuff, because if you're working with 20, 30, 40, 50 clients, you can't then determine, who you're slipping up with. So we make it very candid. It's very simple. There's 3 different metrics that we're looking for. It's NPS, so Net Promoter Score, which is how likely are you to recommend us to someone else. There's CSAT, which is Customer Satisfaction Score. How satisfied are you with our service? And then there's CES, which is Customer Effort Score, which is how hard is it to work with us. These are like out of 10s. And then the final question we ask is just, is there anything else you want to let us know? So those are 3 like globally recognized statistics, and it allows you to benchmark against how other people are doing. But it also, for us, if they put anything less than an 8 on any of those things, that triggers either an account manager or client success manager to reach out to the client and be like, hey, I saw it was a 7. How can we make this a 10? And if we're having those conversations on the regular every single month, we're only going to dramatically improve our service. And so I think between those 3 things, getting embedded with the client, building those relationships, customer satisfaction scores, you can dramatically increase retention and decrease churn.
I like that. So basically irreplaceable, customer satisfaction, and then relationships. So I know in my agency, you can kind of audit this as well. We do 2 Loom videos a week, Monday, Friday, organic paid, basically just updates there. And then monthly we sit down for an hour and we basically just sit down. What are you worried about? How is everything's going? Because it builds the relationship. It makes you feel like you're part of their team. And then it'll also allow us to get all those metrics. Now we can't like track them exactly, but we have them on the call. So if you're in real estate, we kind of talked about that for agencies. How would you operationalize that?
The collection of the data.
Retention. So getting someone to give you a referral on the back end and then coming back later.
Yeah. I mean, the referral piece is, it's very simple and almost primitive in the way that we do it, but it works. So we send out once they hit that peak satisfaction, we have a list of all of our clients. in as many will do, but we have a number of different things that we're tracking on there. For example, we have client profitability score, which is the amount of time we spend on a client versus the amount of money we make, so we can rank all the clients, because we often have those gut feelings about the clients that we spend the most time with, and we're like, hang on, they're paying us the least, and so we make sure that that's tracked. We're very, very hot on data inside the agency, because like at scale, it's the only source of truth. So how do we get referrals? Well, after we get the peak satisfaction, we tick them on that list so we know that they're at that point. And then every quarter, there's an automatic message being sent out, and it's an email that goes over to the client, and it's like, hey, just want to remind you of this referral program I got. There's a simple PDF, and actually just breaks down what that referral program looks like. I don't want to get this wrong, but at least when I last looked at the referral program, we were just doing a 10% off on retainer, not on commission-based structures. So if a client gives you 10 referrals, they actually have no retainer at all. And then we also send them over, which isn't included in there, we send them over like a hamper with like some gifts and stuff when they give us referrals as well. So
okay, so to get this right, you take it off of the like, so if I have a 2K retainer, if they give you a referral, it's now only 1,800.
Correct.
And is that in perpetuity or just as long as the client is with you?
That's indefinite. That's forever.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we're not making the majority of our money from retainers. Retainers kind of just bridge the gap between getting from starting to getting the client some really great results. What we're really making the majority of our money from is the commission-based deals that we've got with the client. So rev shares, profit shares, equity-based deals. Sometimes return on ad spend, depends on the client itself. So we're not emotional over the retainer. It's only really the first 3 months we want to protect the retainer as we're looking to scale up. So we're quite happy if a client has no retainer at all.
So let's just say you get a client from no retainer to now they're just on rev split, but they just passed you a referral. Do you take the percentage that it would be off of the retainer off of the rev split?
No, the percentage only comes off the retainer itself.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
The percentage, so it's only 10% fixed that comes off the retainer itself, and nothing else. Because if it was actually more of a logistical thing, we just didn't want to get involved in every single month having to calculate the amount of money that should be taken off the percentages and then creating a system for it. And it's like, that's a headache. I don't want to do that.
I really like that.
We're not emotional. If a client, churn is our problem. So if we only retain one of these clients that comes in, for 3 months, which is unlikely, and then they leave, but the client's still benefiting from the retainer thing, it's like across large data, we will still be quids in, because let's say they're on no retainer now because they've given us 10 referrals over that time period, on average, then through those 10 referrals, we're going to have some clients that we've made absolute bank with, some clients that hasn't worked out so well with. And of course, we're only actually signing up the client if they are qualified in the first place. True. So we're not just saying, hey, yeah, thanks for the client, we'll take them on. They're below our SQL, they're not service qualified. So they're only going to be good leads that we're taking in anyway.
Interesting. Okay, I actually really I haven't heard that one before. So for most people, I feel like they just do, we'll give you X amount back when you sign someone. That's smart because it's in perpetuity. So do you do anything for the referral side? Let's say someone passes you a referral. For the referee, or the person getting referred to you, do you give them anything off?
No. They're coming in just like a normal client with just more buy-in because they've been pre-sold. Okay,
interesting. Do you have a flow for referrals?
As in a pipeline, a system? Yes. So we're Notion mad. So we use Notion for we've got hundreds of SOPs on Notion and many systems on there, and one of which is a referral pipeline. So we also then we have a partnership pipeline as well for referrals from other agencies and softwares and so on. So we build separate relationships there and dedicate time to that. But we have a client referral pipeline as well. And it's treated just like a normal sales pipeline as you would see on, let's say, Close. And it just got the different stages of which. And so we can manage that properly.
Okay, interesting. So I think we kind of broke down referrals quite a bit. And I want to get into retention a little bit deeper. So embedding yourself in the business, let's operationalize that. How do we embed ourselves as an agency into their business?
I think the gateway drug to embedding yourself in your client's business is jumping on coaching calls with them. So if you get on a coaching call with your clients, and by coaching call, I mean, this is not just your normal check-in where you're going through the ads and so on. This is like a dedicated call where it's happening. you can do this. I mean, it depends on the agency, depends on the client, depends on the relationship. We like to allow communicational style to be dictated by the client somewhat. So when we find that there's a client that wants to speak to us loads, like we will speak to them more naturally. We used to have these very rigid communication forms like a process that would let them know, okay, this is the times in which we speak and so on. We used to put people in Slack, and now we just keep everyone in WhatsApp. We respond 24/7. We're all in. Like that's the way that it is. So these meetings won't always happen in the same interval depending on the client, but let's just say hypothetically it's once a month. We'll jump on a coaching call. The goal of that call is just to understand a holistic view of the business as a whole, understand the relationship between, let's say we're offering creative and ads, like the relationship between those two things and the back end and the sales process. We want to know like the close rates, the show up rates. We want to know who in the team has to go ahead and record the creative and if there's any friction there. And what we're really just trying to do is identify friction points throughout the whole process. Normally it's very easy because the clients and just people in general love to vent about their problems. And one thing all of us business owners have is a lot of problems. And so we're never short to express them. So those calls allow you over a period of time to get a deeper understanding of the clients that you're working with and their specific pains. And then it just allows you to go deeper into that. And what we're looking for is patterns across all of the businesses that we work with. So we can then offer, cross-sell services that are going to solve those repeat problems. So it's a fine line between, not saying yes to everything and all of a sudden being one of those agencies that's just like a busy idiots, but it's trying to recognize patterns and then figure out, okay, what are the high leverage things that you could offer in addition to what you've already got.
That makes sense. So in my agency, that was kind of one of the things that I learned is I can bring in a lot of leads for agents, but then they can't close them. We struggle there. So we brought in ISAs. So you got to find like a partner service like that almost.
Some of the things will be partner services. So some will be some will be a partner service and a white label agency. Some will be things that you can actually do yourself. So for example, one thing that we do in the lead gen department. So we used to just be direct to consumer e-commerce, and now we have this whole lead gen department in the agency, which is kind of full circle because that's where we started. But one system that we built on the sales call side of things is automatic sales call reviewing. So this is actually something that we relatively recently revisited. We built this system very early on, and then AI changed and it wasn't like working in the way it used to. And then actually very recently, Darren helped me with this again. And so we're doing AI-based reviews of sales calls, and we're doing that inside the lead gen agency now as well, which is actually working really well. And of course, I still believe that you can't just rely on that and then send it over to the client and then be done with it. I think someone with sales knowledge has to check it. They have to review it and then send it over, but it's still saving. I mean, for anyone who's listening to this, who'd ever have to do a call review, like you might review a 1 hour call, but it's going to take you like 2 hours because you're watching it, pausing it, thinking about it. And it's a pain in the ass.
It is. Yeah. I think like that's a really good touch point on the sales point. One thing that worked really, really well for us is we just do a ChatGPT transcript and we go over them in the sales team meetings. So what'll happen is a client has a sales call, put in ChatGPT, we get this feedback and we watch and we go, what feedback do we have for them? We record it and send it to them. Because then it's not just one person giving it to you. It's a group of people who are trained to do that.
Are you monitoring then the result or the impact of them then implementing that? Or
I haven't, no.
Interesting. There's a secondary piece to that at the moment, which I'm currently building out. Actually, was building out this weekend, which is functioning well in initial tests. In which we are building a system that will review future call recordings in respect to the feedback that was given previously, and so the feedback is only given based on the previous feedback. So it's like, let me read this new transcript. Have they made changes that align with the feedback that was given to them previously? And it will continue to do that every time that there isn't a certain amount of improvement made. A strike is put, a hypothetical strike is put on that client's name. When they hit 3 strikes, then the team is notified, and then we know to go in and intervene. The idea behind that is we're trying to autonomize the improvement process, of which it's very much theory at the moment, but I can see that in the future that'll be something that could work very well at scale, because it means we can automate that whole process. And then for larger clients, if you're working with teams with 5, 10 salespeople in the team, it's a lot more sustainable because you've got a system that's kind of just working on autopilot once it's plugged in.
That's smart. This is kind of a good segue as well into like AI and your thoughts on that.
Mm.
So we talked sales teams AI here. How are you implementing AI other than just the sales training aspect?
In regards to service delivery or everything?
Sure. Give me service delivery.
Service delivery, the simplest, this is very primitive, and if people are watching this and they're not doing this, then this is like baseline. Custom GPTs for every client as standard, as default. So every client, you upload every asset that you've got for that client, including their products. One thing that we do, which is a hack, is we create what is called what we call a creative brief. Some people would call a white paper on every client that we work with, and it's essentially a breakdown of every single part of the business. So this is a Notion document.
Real estate agents. We've all been there. One cold call away from quitting. No leads, no listings. Just a phone, a script, and a prayer. Crickets. That's when I stopped begging and started learning. I taught myself SEO and Google Ads and used that knowledge to help a local agent build a system. One that took me from a broke college kid to generating closings on autopilot. But this isn't magic. It's work, strategy, and systems. And I want to show you how it's done without wasting 2 years like I did. We've done this for legendary real estate services, from 5 leads a month to $40,000 commission checks on lakefront closings in just 90 days. Or Rick from Vision's First Realty, who's skeptical of SEO, is now ranking organically and closing weekly from Google. Listen, this isn't a course, this isn't a pitch, it's a real audit. I'll break down your site, ad copy, SEO, and show you exactly why your pipeline isn't converting. There's no BS, there's no scripts. It's just tactical feedback and the exact frameworks we use. Frameworks that have already added $121,000 in commission last month alone. If you're tired of hoping for leads and ready to build a system that works when you're not, book the 15-minute website audit and let's fix the leaks.
And it will go through frequently asked questions about the products, the core ICPs, any USPs that they have, a very deep analysis. It's about 15 different points, a very, very deep analysis. It's like 5 pages of the business itself that has been written with the help of AI, but it probably takes about 3 hours for every client to build it out. But it's like the ultimate context document for anything you want to do with AI. Most people, when they're going to do something like or create a custom GPT, they're like, this is my business, this is what I do, research me and figure it out. This is my website, blah, blah, blah. But there's no depth of like marketing knowledge and understanding. And that's the thing that you're missing, that personal context of like, what are the specific nuances that make this service unique? What are the values of this brand? What is the tone of the company itself? How are they different from everybody else in the market? Because if you just go with, okay, this is a real estate agent and this is their website and this is where they're focused, what you miss out on is the thing that makes them unboxable, the thing that makes them, through their perception, unique in the marketplace. And so creating that document where we go deep on the creative side of the business is really important. So we have that in this custom GPT, and then we upload, because we're doing a lot of creative, so we upload every top performing creative that we have in that niche into that as well. And then we feed the system with all of the clients' best performing creatives over time. And so over a period of time, this evolves into a very deep knowledge base of just all of the best performing stuff. So we can then be like, okay, we've got a new creative and we want to test a new iteration of this creative, and it will write a script which is almost perfect first time round because it's got so much context. So that is one thing we're doing on the creative side. That's working incredibly well. We then go ahead and we use that for other various pieces of copy too, but the final touch is done by human. What else on the delivery side? I think I know. Yeah.
One thing not on the delivery side, well, kind of on the delivery side, is for retention. We train it on Loom video scripts. So every time we have a new script, a Loom video that we send out to the client, we train it there because now it's always up to date with new things. Plus, it gets more context on the client. And so that GPT gets better and better and better. So it'll be like, okay, this creative didn't work, we're testing this one. This creative didn't work, we're testing this one. And so then we can also use the chat GPT. So if a client needs a quick brief, hey, we're going to this meeting about this with this client, chat GPT summary, you know what's going on.
Yeah, nice. As well. Yeah, that's
so
cool.
Like it just operationalizes things. And so now instead of going to ClickUp, ChatGPT, we're good.
Yeah, 100%. That's a nice one. The other standards are things like onboarding, offboarding, all of that stuff. Like you can build a good process for. And I think in there's probably lots of other things, but like they're really the main things that come to mind on like the retention service delivery piece. I think in an agency the most important department that we have is the delivery department, and so it's kind of the department that we're the last to use AI in, because ultimately it's the thing that makes us great as individuals, and the more that we use AI in that department, the more we lose our individuality and our creativity and so on. So we're only really using AI in the delivery department for efficiency pieces, but we're trying to stay away from using it to actually fulfill on our behalf, which I think a lot of agencies are in danger of at the moment.
I agree and I disagree. I think it depends on the service.
Mm-hmm.
So SEO, for example, that is basically just I can write better article than you and I can get better backlinks than you. That's just all SEO is. And so we use it very heavily for programmatic SEO because we can test more. So we can essentially test 1,000 different blog posts in the time someone would take to write like 4.
Yeah.
And so I think just purely the volume, it doesn't matter how good of a fucking copywriter you have. If you can test 10, 20 times faster, it doesn't matter.
Agree.
So I think it very much depends on the service.
Agree.
But like backlinks, building those relationships, because that's really all backlinks are, that I haven't found a way to properly do with AI.
Yeah. It's very individual. It depends on exactly what you're offering for the client. I think when you're any kind of copywriting based service is at danger right now when it comes to utilizing AI. Or not at danger. It's just like if you're not utilizing AI, and you're just going to fall behind, especially in like 12 months from now.
Sure.
Like it's going to be so much more sophisticated. 24 months from now, it's going to be better than all of us.
The one thing that I think AI can't quite get right is personal branding. Copy though. I think you mentioned that with Darren. Is you need to have kind of a baseline so you can write that way. So like, while I agree, you're very much in danger with it, you just need to make it styled in a very unique way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Agree. Yeah. We're going through this at the moment. We just hired a new copywriter and who has been at initial stages using AI too heavily. And I'm just like, this just isn't me. This just isn't my tone. This isn't working. And so I'm having to rewrite everything. And it's going against the reason why I hired that person in the first place. But I think that we will get to that point though. We will get to the point where it's gonna work incredibly well. But in the meantime, I think everyone is blending into the same version of themselves.
Yeah, I feel like I even fall into this. Like I have a very what's the word for it? Like rough around the edges, like I swear a lot, that type of thing. But AI just sanitizes it, if you will.
Agree. It misses the little nuances. You I think like with a personal brand, like we don't always format things the way they should be. We break the rules and so on, and there are all these little things that we miss. And then I think as a founder, we're at a danger of just being like, okay, yeah, that will do. But then that will do over the course of a series of months. Those little 1% of that will do will then actually take you from, if you're at 100 when you're writing it yourself to like a 30% version of who you used to be and you don't even realize it yourself. And then you go back to read one of your old emails and you're like, oh shit, this is completely different. Yeah.
Speaking of copywriting, how's LinkedIn going?
LinkedIn is LinkedIn. You saw I got back into LinkedIn recently. Yeah, so I got back into LinkedIn recently when Laura Acosta grilled me for it. And it's going. It's going, but it's just one of those things. It's just so busy trying to do everything else that we're doing, and then you get a little burst of motivation to do some LinkedIn, then you realize you've got 1,000 other things that you need to continue doing. So I've got some good posts in the pipeline. I'm gonna keep them cranking. I'm determined to make it work. But
interesting. I find like LinkedIn's weird. If you start with LinkedIn, you can use it for almost any other platform.
Yeah,
which like sounds weird, but it's true. Like if I have a LinkedIn post and it's a video, it'll go on YouTube and Instagram. Good to go. And it's just like
LinkedIn. Yeah, I mean LinkedIn. You're going for a very sophisticated audience, so you're naturally going to be held to the highest standard, and it's going to be brutal with the feedback that you get. So LinkedIn is funny. I used to 9 years ago when I was in door-to-door, not actually when I was in cold calls about 10 years ago now, LinkedIn was the main source used for lead generation. So I used to use LinkedIn for cold outreach. Then I would, back then you used to be able to scrape mobile numbers from LinkedIn profiles. So Hunter, very interestingly, Hunter.io used to be able to use to scrape mobile numbers on LinkedIn, which is cool. And email addresses from a profile too. I don't know how they got access to that. Anyway, I used to use LinkedIn for cold outreach. I'd reach out to hundreds of people every single day, and I used to grow on the platform. It was a completely different platform back then than what it is today, where it really is now just a content platform, and a written content platform at that. I haven't found that my video content has performed anywhere near as I haven't had anything that's gone semi-viral on LinkedIn as opposed to YouTube. It's a completely different audience. YouTube is vastly a much younger demographic, and so LinkedIn, where you can't tackle it with the same mentality, but for real estate it's massive.
It's really, really good for real estate. The one thing that I will say is residential real estate suffers. That one's really hard. Yeah, I agree with you. LinkedIn video as well is very interesting. So I get about half the impressions when I do that. So I find a lot that on LinkedIn you can do really, really well if you take video copy. Like I wrote it for a video and then I just post a picture instead of the video.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah. It's weird. It's the little things on LinkedIn that make a world of difference.
Yeah. And story just seems to make a big difference on LinkedIn. So
yes.
Just story in general more. It's like it's interesting because LinkedIn is probably the platform that I would perceive to be the least personal platform, but it's the platform, at least at the moment, and I say that as I've only been revived on the platform for about 7 days, but at the moment, or where my mindset is, it's the platform where I'm actually writing the most personal content. Whereas everywhere else is there is obviously, of course, there's personality, there's story and so on, but it's more even more promotional, more educational and so on. But LinkedIn is where I'm telling all the story.
I don't know. I think it's more personal than any other platform. Just because, especially if you actually read the copy, if you message someone on LinkedIn, it's very personal. Like LinkedIn is all a connections game, all a DMs game. And so you have the content, sure, but that'll feed the DMs fundamentally. And so I think it's more personal than other platforms. Because like even Instagram, like if I get a DM, it's just like fuck off. Whereas if it's like YouTube, you can't even DM. These other ones like TikTok, you can't, or you can kinda. But most places you can't DM one-to-one like you can on LinkedIn. So I actually think it's more personal than other platforms.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. And it's interesting because it hasn't always been that way. But if you're a B2B service provider and you're not on LinkedIn, then what are you doing?
True.
Yeah.
True. It's very true. I think the other thing with LinkedIn is it's very underutilized. Like even yourself, like you just started LinkedIn, right? Like how many agency owners are in the same boat? They're heavy on YouTube, they're heavy on Instagram, but they're kind of slacking on LinkedIn.
Well, actually, it's been viewed as like a secondary platform. That's what's happening. We've been posting on LinkedIn for years, but it's been like the content team have just taken a video and just like repurpose it and just slap it on there and hope it does something, and we get like a couple of likes on the platform. So, I think that's the mentality that lots of people have. It's kind of like obligatory. Oh yeah, I should be doing that. Let me just post on there. Let me just chuck on the company page every now and then. But so we've got a mentee. There's a company called Saw of Us. They're the biggest e-commerce agency in the UK, arguably one of the biggest in the world. They're nearing $1 million a month in revenue. They started with us when they were at zero, when they were in university. These two guys 7 years ago now. One of our first mentees a year in. Their main lead flow is from LinkedIn, just personal brand.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is the main lead flow, inbound, and they're just providing value. They're documenting, they're building in public, and the majority of the clients they come from, and we're talking about multi-million-dollar brands that they've just got coming inbound on LinkedIn. So if that isn't enough proof for an agency, then I don't know what it is.
That's true.
Yeah.
What stopped you from doing LinkedIn for so long?
Time.
Really?
Time.
Okay.
I have a content day every week, and in itself, like I always say, like I think the public perception is like, but the minute you have a YouTube channel, it's like you're a YouTuber that has a business. I'm a business owner that has a YouTube channel. I find time to do YouTube. Now, YouTube is a great lead gen strategy for us. And I love putting out the content. I love seeing the impact. I love meeting people in person who have watched those videos and done something great with it. Love that. But fundamentally, it takes a huge amount of my time. every single Wednesday is like a content day. And that's when I spend most of my time planning a video and recording it. Sometimes it will take 7 hours to just plan and record one video, and actually, and I say sometimes, that's the existence majority of the time. So then thinking about, okay, now I need to write on LinkedIn. Now I need to do this whilst also keeping up an email list, whilst also remembering to post an Instagram story, whilst also remembering to do X, Y, Z. It's just been one of those platforms just fell on the back burner. The secondary part to that that's more logical is we haven't really ever been selling to existing business owners not in the agency, but in the education business, which is where my personal brand is more optimized towards. And so it wasn't until last year we released a program for existing agencies. And it was really at that point, I think we've now come to the point where we need to be posting more content surrounding these business owners. And I wish we did sooner, because since we've really started pushing more advanced content, call volume has dramatically shot up on that side. So yeah, but on the agency, it's never been a significant focus for us. It absolutely should be. And if I had it my way and I would, jump on a call with the agency team and rant at everybody about why they're not on LinkedIn, I would, but it's not going to be productive. So, because I'd probably have to build the system and have to help them write the coffee and do all of that stuff as well.
No, that's how the team is,
Yeah. They're just busy doing their own thing. They're doing a great job on other stuff. And so you put something else into the mix in a world where they're already busy, stressed, and, working on other stuff. It's a game of priorities. Absolutely. And I suppose that's a lesson in continually revisiting your priorities and whether or not the time that you're expending in certain areas could be expended other places for better return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the game of business fundamentally, is it not?
It's 100% the game of business. You can build so on the flip side to that agency that's doing those numbers on LinkedIn, we have an agency in the exact same industry, cranking right now, scaling really hard. They don't have any presence on LinkedIn, nothing on YouTube and so on, and they're just TikTok. So they're TikTok reels, and they've got lead magnets running on TikTok, and then they're actually getting people to DM them on Instagram. Funny enough, they're taking them off TikTok because they're getting around the whole DM thing on TikTok. DM me on Instagram this keyword. They're plugging AI into that and to respond to them, and they are cranking clients. So it is the game of okay, where do I want to put my energy and attention? And it's very hard to know, okay, if I put 10 hours in this place and 10 hours in this place, what's actually going to be the most fruitful for me? And I actually think that's not a very productive conversation to have internally, because you've got to really actually want to do that thing as well. So you've got to want to do video content to be on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate, I want to create videos. I can't think of anything worse than recording multiple shorts a day. It drives me crazy. I don't want to do that. So, but you have to really want to do that, whereas writing on LinkedIn is the polar opposite. It's written copy, and it's longer form, and you're thinking about it a lot deeper. So I think it's not, if the game was just about making money, then we would split test everything and then just do the one thing. But I don't think that's sustainable long term. I think you can keep that up for a few months, but long term, it's not very sustainable unless you actually enjoy doing that thing.
No, I agree there. What do you think is kind of the middle ground? Where do you see? Because at a certain point, you have to do things where you're going to make money. And you also have to do things that you enjoy. But do you find something where it's 50-50, 50% I have to make money, 50% I enjoy it? Or where do you find your personal ground?
I think that you have to. The enjoyment creates the longevity. There's no doubt about that. I've been doing this now for 8 years in a space where I've seen hundreds of people come and go and drop off and move into different vehicles and so on. And it has to be because there's not a deep enjoyment in the thing that they're doing. Now, do you get itchy feet and want to jump into something else? Absolutely, that does happen as well. Do businesses fall and you're forced to jump into something else? Yes, as well. But I think you must start off with doing what generates you money, and then test enough things to understand what you actually enjoy doing, and then continue doing that one thing. Because there are many, many different ways to make money. You can make money on TikTok. You can make money on Instagram. You can make money on Facebook. You make money with ads. You can make money with organic. You can make money. There are so many different avenues you can go down, whether you want to go cold traffic, warm traffic, etc. You can make all of them work. Not all of them are going to be as easy as others. So I think you have to do something for a long enough time to be able to make the money from it, and then you have to establish whether or not you actually have the motivation to continue doing it. because the money won't motivate you forever. Money will motivate you when you don't have money, but until you have money, and then you're like, why am I doing this? Money's so fickle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's very true. I feel like that's how cold calling is for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, cold calling is kind of like it gets you off the ground.
Yeah.
And it's why I force, in no other better way to say it, new start agency owners to do it. Like it's non-conditional that new start agency owners cold call when we mentor them, because it builds all of the foundational resilience that allows you to be successful as a business owner. Like, screw the money, mate. Screw the clients, like, and everything else, all of that stuff. That's the secondary benefit to you building resilience.
Right.
And in a world where resilience is so sparse, like in a world where people are so sheltered and protected and afraid to be told no because they've just seen Instagram and they've watched someone that's done incredible and they're like, whoa, it's so easy, I can do this thing. So cold calling is like now more than ever something that people have to do, but it is just something that gets you off the ground, gets you the first client, gets you your resilience, and then you earn the privilege to move into something else, but you've got to eat the shit for a while.
You might find this funny. I start all of my sales reps on cold calling.
Perfect.
Because it fucking sucks.
It sucks so bad. It does. Until it doesn't. And then actually it's like you get into this state of psychosis where you actually quite enjoy the pain of the cold call. You're like, oh, come on, come at me. How many no's today? Who's going to hang up on me? Let's go. You know, because you understand the numbers. You understand, okay, well, on average, if I make 25 calls, I'll get one meeting booked, or whatever that may be for you.
Yep.
And so then you don't care about what happens in between. You just understand it is a numbers game. So you're like, come on, come at me.
Yep. I was actually thinking about like that as well. How can I get my team to call more? And I was like, you know what would be funny? Instead of tracking the amount of people who like picked up and like talked to you, what if you track the amount of people who just hung up on you? Because when you see numbers go up, you're like, ooh, yeah. So it makes them like, it's a dopamine reward. You're like, I get to move the number now. It's just so weird.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, but hyper awareness of the numbers will make life so much easier for the guys, and that's why you just have to track everything. It's like they have to know that it's not about what happens today or tomorrow. It's what happens over the course of the week, over the course of the month, as long as they stay consistent on the numbers that they hit.
Exactly.
So they might have a 2-day run or a 3-day run, or sometimes even a week where it's just absolutely shit. And then on that Monday, they get like something ridiculous, like a 10% meeting book rate, because they've, the law of attraction has come, and all of a sudden, because they were consistent, here we go, they've now compensated for the shit week they had last week. Whereas most people give up at that point and then don't get the reward at the end of it. And they're like, oh, cold calling doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, no, you just gave up. You didn't have the resilience. And that's the one thing you need.
I'm curious what your numbers are for cold calling.
In what?
So like, let's say your cold outreach, like we'll say email/cold call. What are your like book rate percentage?
25 calls for one meeting booked is the average.
Okay.
That's which is quick maths. What is that?
It's 5%.
5%?
No. It's 25, 4%.
So that's the average. But it depends on the industry. It's so subjective. So that's like local business cold calling, for example. That would also be real estate agents cold calling. But then you could call up e-commerce brands.
Right.
It might take you 50 dials to get a meeting booked.
Yeah.
So it depends. And also depends on the quality of the data. Are you calling mobiles? Are you calling home numbers? Like, what is the situation? Yeah, but normally we just benchmark people on 25 calls to one meeting booked. But ultimately that will then change once they've made their first 200, 500 dials.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most people grossly underestimate how many calls they've got to make until they can actually take a calculated guess. So one thing agency owners do is we get agency owners on the flip side to what most people say is, oh, you need to niche down. It's like, yes, you need to niche down, but you need to know what works to start off with. And opportunity is not abundant when you're starting off. So go what we call scattergun. So work with a number of different niches and figure out what you want. Then might pick like 5 different niches, cold call a bunch, and then jump on a call with me and be like, hey, I'm just like, this niche isn't working. I'm like, how many companies you called? They're like, oh, like 60. Like that's like half a day's worth of work, man. Like and they've done that over the course of like 2 weeks. Come to me when you've called up like 300 companies, 500 companies in that niche before you can determine whether or not this is working. Yeah. And most people grossly underestimate what numbers you need to hit in order to actually do that, because you could call up 60 companies, and in the same rule of what I just said of you have a bad week, 60 companies, like you could just have bad luck with 60 leads. So you need to rule out that like bad luck element and go through, again, rule of large numbers, 300, 500. 500 is like the max that you'd need to determine. But yeah, you need to hit a lot more numbers. And people underestimate how many calls they can actually do. You could easily do 150 dials a day.
Yeah, I agree. I think it all depends on how tailored it is too, right? Like, so my team, I only have them do 50 a day, but they also do Loom outreach first.
That's different.
Like, it's a totally different method as well. So it's like, where do you gauge the amount of outreach you need to do? And it all varies depending on industry too. Like, the one thing that I was running into was how many do I do per day plus run the agency on the back end? Like, for me, I could really only do 10 before I had to hop into operations and just do shit. So it's finding that.
I think it's more important to do it time-based. So just block out the calendar where you've got that time period. Like if it's just 2 hours, then great. Just get as many as you can get done in that 2 hour period. And then that just be it. And then you've got your time dedicated to service delivery. Because that is the dance. Like especially when it's just you're decreasing the amount of sales outreach you can do with every new client that you sign. And so then you've got to, you hit that in-between period where you've probably got 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 clients, and you're also still the one who's responsible for sales. And so you haven't yet got enough money to hire someone to take service delivery off you. So in that instance, I think it's more important that it's about the time that you spend and less about the hitting the same number. Yeah.
That's kind of like what I did initially was we got to like 5-6 clients and I'm like, fuck, this sucks. I still can't do outreach because I can't quite hire someone to do it. So I'm like, who here is making me the least money? And then I pruned the bottom 4. So now I only have 2 clients, but now I'm making like, I don't know, it was like 60, 70% of the same revenue. Now I can do outreach again and continue. And I think that's just kind of the nature of the agency, right? You bring in 10 people, you prune 8, 10 people, prune 8.
100%. That's a massive missing piece that most people lose out on. They think they're obligated to continue working with the same business that in an unsustainable way. And then all of a sudden they're a slave to a company and basically an employee to the companies they're working with for next to no money. And they just need to be more confident in having rational conversations with the client and just laying it out to them, because ultimately the service doesn't exist if the business isn't sustainable.
Exactly. Like here's what's bananas for me, right? So at 6 clients, I was making $8K, I want to say. I have 3 right now and I'm making 22. Like it's just a math game, right? Who can I get rid of and just take a rev split?
Agree.
That's how it goes.
Agree. And also giving those clients the opportunity to change the deal as well in the interim. But even when you do get that happen, it very, very rarely works out well. Because there's this underlying resentment between the client and you, like them towards you, because they're like, well, we had this deal and now they're always going to perceive it as you getting greedy. That's always the way they're going to perceive it. They're never going to look at it as like, okay, this is the business and they need to get rid of me because they're going this way and so on. It's always like, oh, they're trying to grab more money. But you still want to have that conversation because then it doesn't burn bridges.
Right.
Rather than just like, hey, I need to let you go.
Yeah. I think, I also want to ask you about this. So I have one client and I'm like, fuck, I screwed up on the retention part. Who's that client for you?
Well, I can think of many clients that we screwed up the retention part over the years. What comes to mind when you say that is this piece where, well, we had at a point, we had 3 clients that were paying us over 20K a month each. One of which, in the month before they left us, paid a 45K invoice. And so we had a significant portion of our revenue coming from these 3 clients, and we just thought we unlocked it all. We had this it was a percentage of return on ad spend that we were charging of our clients, and no other agency was doing that deal. Most agencies in our space were charging a percentage of ad spend rather than a percentage of the return. And so the industry is sophisticated. We do that now and we crank. But back then it was like we were against the grain and no one was doing that. And so we were the outlier, which we thought was positive, but was actually negative because it gave contrast to the client, gave them options. And so what happened was it was in Q1 and these 3 clients that paid these invoices, it was between 80 and 100K between them. And the month later, all 3 of them gave us notice. They weren't related to each other. They were, and by notice at this point in time, it was like 30 days max. There was no long-term notice period. We had lessons there as well. Yeah. And it really just it knocked us back because we thought we were invincible because we were printing cash for them. We had this mindset of like, okay, well, these clients are staying forever because some of these clients were quite literally making millions on a monthly basis just from the ads that we were running. And so we're like, well, they're never going to leave. We've cracked it here. We've absolutely nailed this. We just need to sign 10 more of these and we're away. Like this is the easiest thing ever. And what it did was it allowed the clients to think about how much money they were spending on us, and it allowed them to evaluate whether or not they could just do it all in-house. And at that time, we didn't have the moat of being irreplaceable. We didn't have our fingers in all of the other pies and getting involved in the sales process and so on. We just offered them an ad service where we created ads for them, we ran the ads, we generated them sales on the back end, and it was very replaceable. There were many other agencies that could do the same thing as us. And we didn't preempt or even consider the idea that they would want to bring things in-house. We actually now have a rule generally that we're very, very cautious if a client is paying us more than 20K a month. If a client is paying us more than 20K, we're really, really careful of the relationship because we're hyper aware of the fact that that's a huge amount of money. And even if we are making them loads in contrast, they're still going to be thinking, that's 20K. Can we retain that? Is there someone else that can do this cheaper? Is there a way we can bring this in-house? And so we just put a lot of energy and attention into those clients. And we don't like clients paying us more than that on performance-based deals because we don't find it keeps us as secure. So we're just very, very conscious of that when that happens.
Okay. So for someone I'm potentially signing my first over 20K a month deal.
Mm-hmm.
I literally sent hey, let's just double check this is good, right? Today. What would you say to that person?
Well, you've done the right thing in the sense that you have expectations set from the start. So that's key. What normally happens with most people is they get to these really big deals and it's like something that the client didn't expect. Even if you're on the sales call, preempt them and be like, okay, at some point you're probably going to be paying us X. They kind of think, oh yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Let's just wait until that happens. Let's wait and see. And then it happens, and the client is almost just surprised that they're now paying this amount of money, and so it's it creates this friction. Whereas in your instance, as long as the expectations are set from day one and they know exactly how this is going to look from the start, then it's very, very different. Yeah. So expectations have to be really clear. In this instance, these clients started paying us at like 2K, and then all of a sudden we're paying us like 40. Yeah. So it's a very contrasting situation for them to be in. So expectations, building that moat in the sense of you're getting embedded into the business in the ways that we spoke about earlier on, getting on the coaching calls with them and so on, being very candid with them, building personal relationships with them as well. And I think they're really the only things you can do to protect yourself in that instance outside of having a longer notice period. So having a longer term notice, so signing them up initially, is it like a 3-month term or is it a 6-month term or is it a 30-day term?
We do no terms.
Yeah. So we do the same thing, but then when we start getting them great results, we then tie them in, we'll incentivize them for a long term. So we always, one of our main selling points is there's no term, you can come in, you can leave. We actually have a happiness guarantee. We don't do a revenue-based guarantee, we just have happiness. Our guarantee is that if you in the first month, if you're not completely happy with us, you can go, no questions asked, you can leave. Because we don't want to have difficult conversations. Like we don't want to keep people who don't want to be with us. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. Now that never happens, but we have that fail-safe there. And we have we have no notice period outside of when we're getting client results, and then we'll incentivize them. So we will offer them a better deal in return for, 6, maybe even a 12-month engagement sometimes.
One thing that Darren said that also works really well, but this is kind of more geared towards like if you just have a retainer and you don't have like commission splits or rev splits, if you ask for the year up front, but then give them like 2 or 3 months free.
Can work well. I don't like the economics of it though. I think
agree.
Agency, I think that works really well in education-based businesses and some other models. Agencies are 30-day financial periods. That's how it works. We're paying all of our expenses as team. Most of our clients are paying retainer. So if you have this one outlier client that pays up this amount up front, it's going to boost the bank account, but you're not, no matter how much you convince yourself that you're going to treat that like it's completely different, it's still going to feel like in 10 months' time you're working for free with that client because that business has had an account and so on. So I think if you're doing that with most clients, so you have over 50% of your clients doing a pay in full from a time period, then your mindset towards the economics are going to change. But if you just have a couple that are outliers, I think it's very difficult to manage that from a financial perspective.
I agree. Like, especially if you have under even 10.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it's like, if you have 10 and they're all on there, 2 months of the year, you're just not getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
It just
You
sucks.
need to like drip feed it into, like, you need to chuck that money into another bank account. That's basically, or like a different account, and so it's sat there and it's not sat on the main one, because it's you're overinflating the accounts.
Yeah. Have a business oh shit fund.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if it's still there at the end of the 12 months, then it's great. That deal worked out well. And if you need to tap into it, then it is what it is.
I saw on your Instagram 2 days ago, quote, "Life's fragile." Now, James Kemp made a comment a while back about how, quote, "My observation of top performers is that they are acutely aware that their lives are limited." Has this been your experience in the agency space, and how do you make of it?
Yeah, for sure. I have one of my biggest motivators throughout the years has been hyper awareness that life is very short, and that you have goals that you want to achieve by specific time frames. And so, for example, at the moment, one of those is I'm now 30. I've achieved lots of which that I wanted to achieve. I've got a few other things that I want to achieve from a business perspective. I say few. I've got a lot of things I want to achieve from a business perspective, but I am hyper aware of other things that I want to do in my life alongside that. For example, finding a wife, having children, etc. And there is a specific set of circumstances I want to be in at that point, one of which is building a house, which I've always wanted to build. And that creates pressure, and that pressure creates a lot of hard work, and that results in 12-hour days. From the outlet, most people would look at what I have and what I've achieved and be like, he's done, it's sorted. But in contrast to life's pressure of time and expectation, that isn't the case in my reality.
Yeah.
So I believe, in relation to your question, life being short and hyper awareness of that has had a massive impact on my motivation and my drive, because even though I've made many millions, I still feel like I've got to get in the trenches and grind it out, because there are other things that I'm looking to achieve. And I think that's a blessing.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it creates conscious awareness that time is finite, and that almost an undertone of your time is running out. But on the flip side, it makes it very, very easy to work hard. Like, very, very easy. There's no friction towards it at all. So it's like it's a balance, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I like the house. Build the house. That's always a fun one. Now, I also want to ask you on that. Most people have a specific moment in time in which they kind of get this realization. Do you have one?
When I turned 29,
Okay.
29's a strange age. 29, you feel age pressure for the first time in your life. And a lot of other people I spoke to felt that at 29. It's like, you're like, shit, I'm 30 next year. Because 30 is like this age that when you're like 18, you're like, they're old. Whereas I feel the same as I feel when I was 21. I feel the same as I feel when I started the business. I don't feel any different. Like, I feel more wise. I feel like I've got more wisdom. I feel like I know what I want a lot more, and I understand myself a lot deeper. But 29, I was like, societal pressure comes in, and there is an expectation of who you're meant to be and what you're meant to have at 30 years old, in the context of, you got to be married, you got to have kids, you got this thing, you've got that thing going on. It's the pressure that society puts on you. And so you go through this period, at least in my instance, of transitioning into understanding, actually, societal pressure is bollocks. And it's all about your own subjective experience and what you actually want out of life. And then you relieve the pressure. Hitting 30, I then felt an immense relief of pressure. And now I know that I've got, probably 5 years until I want to have kids and when I want to have that house built. And when I say about the house, that goal is actually a pressure. It's not a financial goal. That goal is a time-based goal. When I build the house, I want to be able to have the time to be able to travel around, look at all the materials, design. I studied architecture in uni, although I didn't finish. And I want to design the house myself. I want to work with the architects. I want to go fly to Japan and pick the koi fish that are going to be in the pond. I want to go do all these things and have the time in order to do that. I know at the moment, because there are business goals that I have, I wouldn't have the time to do it. So I want to get to a place where I've got the time in order to enjoy that experience with my wife, maybe with kids, whatever that may look like. And so I think that came at 29. That for me, that it was the catalyst of more pressure to turn up the heat.
Okay.
But I believe that's just the many transitional phases we fall in life. In the same instance that I had a calling at 21 years old and pressure to go start a business.
Right.
You know? And there'll be many other ones just like that along the journey.
What built that pressure when you were younger?
I always thought that money was going to make me happy. And at 21, I was earning like between 50 and 60K a year pounds, which was good money and in a sales job. And I was quarter of the age of anyone else in the office. Or quarter is probably an overstatement. Half the age of anyone else in the office. And earning more than most people in the office, but realizing I had no freedom. And that was the catalyst to me having a lot of pressure to go start a business, because I was looking around me and I was like, I don't want to be this person that sat here in the same position that everybody else is in another 20 years from now. And I just come back from a holiday with a girlfriend at the time, and we said to each other, oh, back to reality. And we've got to go back to reality now. I thought to myself, if my reality is something that I'm afraid to go back to, then what kind of a reality is that to live? So that created the pressure of, I need to go and start a business now. I need to revisit this thing that I'd always thought I wanted to do in the past. I used to sell drawings of Pokemon cards in school. I had a clothing business in university, in college. I had an events business in university. And I kind of
the nightclubs.
Yeah,
the nightclubs.
The nightclubs. And I gave up that dream because I was like, well, I don't want to have a business. I just want to have money. And then I got the money and I was like, oh, I don't want to have the money. I want to have freedom. And then I got the freedom and I was like, oh, I actually do want the money and I want both. And then it's transpired from there.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of people's journey. They want the money, then they want the freedom. It's very like linear, which sounds weird, which is true. So your entrepreneurship, you did nightclubs as well. I find this so funny. How many people in the business space do you know that ran nightclubs?
A few. Yeah, a few. I think it's a very easy thing to get into. So you start doing the PRing, and then if you're savvy, then you can build yourself up to having the relationship with the bar yourself, and then you can run the events. And so it's a very easy thing to evolve into. So yeah, I've seen a few people that have done that. Yeah.
Interesting. What other? I feel there's a couple, I guess, like pre-businesses, if you will, that are similar to that. That's just like a gateway. I know we said websites before as well for like the agency space. What other ones have you seen?
Gateway businesses. The classic people selling sweets in school is the one that we all hear about. But I think most people get exposed to the business space with some kind of service-based business. So it's whether it's websites, whether it's copy, whether or not it's photography and videography is another big one. You see a lot of videographers and who are just passionate who come into the agency space. And that's why I love the agency model so much, because it's the perfect gateway business in so many ways. Like, I don't see a more perfect gateway business. You're offering a service to someone else. It couldn't be more simple, but also at the same time couldn't be more testing. I fundamentally believe that if you can run a successful agency, you can touch any business and be successful with it to some degree. The same can't be said for other models, like dropshipping, where there's a lot of, there is skill involved, of course, but there's also a lot of fortune involved. A huge amount of fortune involved in picking the right product at the right time and having the right combination of the ads. The amount of dropshipping stores you see, which are absolute garbage, and then they scale well, and the business owner comes out and tries to start another business and actually really struggles because they haven't had to deal with people. And people-based businesses are the businesses that really build the business depth that allow you to jump into other models and do well with them. I've seen many a financially successful dropshipping person who's come out of that business or sold it, had a lot of money, so they don't have the pressure, but have then struggled to find their feet again because they don't have the depth or the grit that an agency gives you, because you're grinding 10, 12-hour days in some instances just to get it off the ground.
Yeah. I feel that e-com and agencies are two very different things.
Completely.
And e-com is the vehicle if you want to scale, but it's like flipping a coin. Play that game. Agency is if you want to build a sustainable isn't the right word, but you want to be able to consistently make sure it gets off the ground. Because I feel like if you know how to build an agency, you can build it in almost any niche with basically 100% ability to make it at least profitable.
I would say sustainable is the word for it. An agency is a very sustainable business because you're building this ball of energy over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're building so much intrinsic value, especially in the team that you're building as well. Like, and it's deployable. Whereas you can see, I think one of the many mistakes that people make with the agency model is, unless they get a big exit out of it, and by a big exit, I mean multi-7 figures, arguably 8 figures, so 5 million plus. An agency below that valuation is so much more valuable as far as being a deployable asset, because a marketing team is the most and a sales team, but the marketing specifically is the most powerful team in any company. The ability to generate interest towards a product and service is the one part of most businesses where they fail. It's the part of most businesses where they lack. It's the biggest weakness. And so if you've built enough depth of understanding of an industry that you can deploy on multiple businesses, why wouldn't you want to keep that? So an example of this, it's an agency we work with, very good friends, called V8 Media. They're the biggest agency in South Africa. Now, they've been running that agency for a similar period of time as us. It's almost 8 years now. And they, as business owners, are now evolving to the next stage. They had the decision, do we want to sell the agency, or do we want to deploy that value elsewhere and multiply the amount of money we're making? And so what they decided was, well, let's start using this agency as leverage to get equity in other brands. So now they've launched what they call V8 Capital, which is essentially a mergers and acquisition business where they're using the agency's leverage to get equity in other brands. Now, in just 12 months, they built a portfolio of brands that they didn't even have to start. They just scaled through their experience in the agency, that are now making over $1.5 million a month. And they own 50% of that portfolio. And so they've created immense value, far more value than is created inside the agency, just by redistributing that value somewhere else. And that is a huge leverage point.
That's fundamentally what Alex Hormozi did, is it not?
It's exactly what Alex Hormozi did.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what we're now moving into as well in the agency. We're now. I can't speak too much because this is a deal that is still in unraveling. But we recently did a deal with a very large business who has a huge network of brands that we're going to work with, and we're essentially doing a roll up of part of the agency where we're leveraging the value that we have in the business to take a play or take a seat on the table of a much larger roll-up, a much larger exit that's going to happen, a 9-figure exit that's going to happen down the line. Now, of course, the agency will only get a portion of that because of the value it's contributing, but there are so many businesses that lack or don't have that fundamental marketing power that will see the value in an agency, and a smart agency owner will play a much longer game where they will attach themselves to another entity or get involved in mergers and acquisitions because they can use the leverage that they've built to build fundamentally more capital or more exit potential than just selling the agency as it is as a single entity. Mm-hmm. Because an agency gets 4 to 6 times EBITDA on exit, which is very low if you consider most agencies' profit margins are like maybe 40% if they're doing well. If they're over 50%, you're doing exceptionally well, but maybe 40% at scale in many agencies. And so your profit isn't huge. So you either just keep it as a cash flow business, or you redistribute that value into something else to get a much larger exit down the line. I think the best play is trying to get equity for multiple other companies as a group.
Yeah, it's almost like agency into VC. Right.
Yeah, it is. It is. Getting a VC, but you can just get a VC partner who who's bringing the capital, and you as the agency are just bringing the value. Because you don't have to bring any capital yourself as an agency, because all of your value is in the service you provide. Whereas there are many VC firms which will attach themselves to an agency because VC have the money, here's the marketing. Now we just need to find potential businesses and we can just explode them because we've got capital, we've got marketing power, and that's all we need.
And that's good for the agency because they get referrals effectively. Like
Exactly.
free referrals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, that's one of the weird things that like we're seeing on agencies. Like you said, Alex Hormozi, was it V8?
V8 Media, yeah.
V8. Like, I feel like that's what a lot of agencies are doing long term. And you said you're kind of along that path as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're doing exactly the same model at the moment. I just can't speak specifically about it. But
fair
yeah,
enough.
we're doing the exact same model in a business that's already doing 9 figures in capital. So, and they're attached to VC firms and so on in a very large space. Again, I can't speak specifically about it, and I will speak about it on a future podcast. It's just a deal that's currently materializing. But it's a 3 to 5 year plan that's going to end up in a roll up, which will end in a very, very large exit, far greater than what we would get if we just exited the agency as an individual entity.
Interesting. Okay. So your future plans are just kind of let the agency roll up?
The future plans are let the agency roll up as part of it. It's a portion of the agency. We will retain the agency will continue to live beyond the exit.
Okay. So are you planning on keeping the coaching program then?
Absolutely, I will keep the coaching program. I'm also an investor in many different softwares.
Yeah.
And so I will continue running the coaching program, and I will continue investing in software and probably diverting my energy more and more into software over time. And naturally, in the space that we're in with AI at the moment, I see that as an evolutionary model. I'm ready for something new as well. And it's been a long time. I had a good 5-year stint in the agency, and then most of my energy has been diverted into the coaching, into the education business. I've had a really good stint there as well. Naturally, as entrepreneurs, we want to try and test new things, and so I'm ready for a new challenge. And I'm thinking SaaS feels like an exciting play. I've got a number of good equity holdings in a couple of SaaS companies, and so it's now just dictating where that path is going to go from there.
I mean, SaaS is way more scalable too.
Yeah,
like you're at the point where you can just you have the people to sell to.
I've had a bunch of very, very good cash flow businesses for a long time, which have served me very well. But I've got an exit itch right now, and not because I want to get out of the models I'm in, but I want to ride an exit and experience that. It seems like that would be a very fun thing to go through, and that's what I'm working towards at the moment.
Do you know Tim Stoddard?
No.
Okay. Actually, message Darren. He's closer with Darren, but Tim just exited his agency and is now going into more just straight coaching. Plus, he's doing a couple other things. Like he's an investor in Kit, that type of thing. So it sounds like he just did what you want to do is what it sounds like. So he might be a really good guy to talk to.
Yeah, interesting. So I think actually the exits that I'm more bullish on are the software exits rather than the agency exit, because obviously we've got to deal with the agency, but the software exits is what excites me, especially in the AI space at the moment, where we're getting 24 times multiple on revenue in AI-based softwares. And so, I think the market right now for micro SaaS solutions, quick builds and exits within 3 to 5 years is huge. And so, I think there's some good cash to be made there in the short term.
I don't know about you, but I don't know if I could ever exit an agency, like my agency that I started, because it feels like it's a very cash flow. It's a very gentleman's business. And so you get very attached to it.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree in the same sense that when we do this roll up, we are going to benefit from releasing a lot of capital from the business, but the business itself will live on and we will retain equity in the business itself. And so the agency will survive, albeit our equity holding will be significantly less. We will no longer be significant shareholders in the business, but it will survive. And I like the idea of retaining a piece of the agency because it is your baby. And it is also a huge amount of leverage. It's amazing to have access to that kind of marketing power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a shame when people just sell the agency, because most people don't sell the agency for any kind of decent capital.
No.
They'll maybe get a 6-figure exit, and if they're lucky, a 7-figure exit. But most agencies don't sell for huge amounts of money because they're only selling a client list. They're not really selling anything that's intrinsically that valuable, because most agencies aren't that unique.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But I think that's also what makes them good. They're not unique, but they're sustainable.
Yeah, but they're people's businesses, which is why they make sense to keep them, because they're
Sure.
building good relationships, and in the agency very much it's the relationships inside the company. So the agency in absence of the team isn't, that
Yeah.
valuable. So
That's true. Well, I mean, what is an agency fundamentally? It's just a group of people who are good at something
Mhm.
that then proceed to sell said service.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you're essentially selling the employees.
What an agency really is,
Mhm.
at a certain level of scale, is because we're talking about like keeping an agency, at a few $100,000 a month. That's really, I think there are two routes that you can go down an agency. You go corporate. So I know many of those agencies that have gone down that route. They go corporate. They want to go $1 million a month, $2 million a month. They want to scale massively, sell to a conglomerate. That's the path they're going down. Or you keep an agency at a couple $100,000 a month where it's not crazy to manage. It's not ridiculously stressful, and it's a great cash flow business. And then it just becomes an opportunity vacuum. And that's actually the route. If your goal is satisfaction or fulfillment and retaining some level of freedom, still making loads of money, I think the better option for observing lots of agencies go down both paths is sustaining it at a few $100,000 a month, removing yourself from it and using it as an opportunity vacuum. And that opportunity being investment opportunities, you should put your cash, being equity holdings in other businesses, getting involved in M&A. Those, I think there's more excitement to be had as an entrepreneur. There's more diversity than, okay, now I'm going to just scale this thing to $1 million, $2 million a month. Because there are other better vehicles to scale to $1 million, $2 million a month plus. Much better vehicles with 20% of the workload and 10% of the stress load. And so if your goal is to hit those kind of numbers from a revenue standpoint, and I think there's other vehicles, and I believe at least that an agency is better sustained at a few $100,000 a month and used as a vacuum for other opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I agree with that on the agency part. Okay.
What are your goals?
What
are your goals for the agency?
Right now, I just enjoy working in the agency, to be totally honest. Like, it's hard. It's stressful, don't get me wrong. But it's the hard and stressful that, like, a masochistic fuck enjoys. Like, that's kind of where I'm at.
Do you know, like, are you thinking long term about, like, do you want to build it and get it to a certain revenue level, or are you using it? So, for example, I laid out those two options. You go down this corporate route, or you go down the route of using it as an opportunity vacuum. Which one of those is more attractive to you?
I think I'd probably use it as a, like, opportunity. Right? Like, I think this year, so I'll just kind of walk through this. This year, my goal is before I turn 21, take it to 100K. Because the only thing stopping us right now isn't operations, isn't retention. Like, our retention, once we get someone in, we have literally lost one client thus far.
Nice.
That isn't through us. So I think we have our retention good. It's just scale to 100K. And then I think it's slowly working myself out of the business. So kind of use it more as an opportunity thing.
Yeah. Nice.
To get into other things.
Yeah.
But the question would be what to get into. Because I'm not sure I want to do group coaching. It's just not something I enjoy.
Yeah.
And so what other vehicles can we use other than group coaching?
I think the beauty of that question is you don't have to have the answer until it presents itself to you. You will, when you have an agency doing 6 figures a month, so much opportunity will come by your door every single month. True. And so you just have the pick. You can go down M&A. You can go down software. You can go down coaching. You can go, every vehicle that could possibly exist is open. You could go down, be owning a real estate agent yourself, or a group of them. So whatever opportunity could exist will come to you. And that's why I think it's so beautiful as an opportunity vacuum, because there are so many different avenues you can go down. Right. And so many different paths to take. And so it's a question that doesn't have to be answered, because you will have the pick of the litter when that comes.
One thing that I was actually thinking about, so this is an advantage of US real estate specifically. So what I could do is long term using it as an opportunity thing, but I could do it even more. I could just build a giant real estate brokerage where we just funnel leads to people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're familiar how, like we were kind of talking, how real estate works in the US is you have top, you have the brokerage, you have team, and then you have each essentially 1099, which is a real estate agent. You could just, as real estate agencies or real estate brokerages in the agency, potentially want to, like their owner gets old or something like that, we buy them up, bring them under our own brokerage, and now we straight up just take a 30% rev split from everyone
Nice.
and just funnel leads. That's one option. But
I see this model happen often with in the lead gen space. And many lead gen agencies will go down the route when you've got the deepest understanding of how to generate leads in a niche, more than any of the real estate brokers in the industry, because you've just worked with so many of them, and you have all of that data as well. Just going down the route of creating their own funnel, generating their own leads, and just selling them on to everybody at mass. And like that is another great model that works exceptionally well in the lead gen space. Like there are infinite opportunities, there are infinite roads to go down, and that's what I think is really exciting about it. Is the you have to earn the right to get to that position by making enough money in the agency and proving your worth to an industry. So that takes a lot of hard work. But when you get there, the challenging part is just, okay, where do I actually want to spend my time? Because you can also go down this wild goose chase and go down opportunities that just aren't right for you.
Yeah.
Which many people do. And
it's after the agency, it's what everything's open. Like I think that's kind of the memo here.
Yeah, 100%.
Like what works for you.
Yeah, 100%.
Gosh, it's what's his name? Who's the owner of Gymshark?
Ben Francis.
Ben Francis. I feel like that's kind of what he did, but with the e-com space. He just kind of like, bro, I'm gonna go live on my farm now.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Does what he wants. Yeah. Ben Francis has got it nailed. And the equity that he's managed to retain in Gymshark is incredible. Yeah.
That's the dream right there.
Oh, it's the dream. Yeah. And someone else who's done an incredible job like that just reminds me of the farm is Davey Fogarty. Like Davey's done such an amazing, like started Udi and then has built that brand. And then now he just spends lots of his time on that farm as well and just cherry picking what he wants to work on. And I think that's that is the beautiful part of being a successful entrepreneur and having a publicly successful business is you'll never ever be short of opportunity around you, and so you just get to choose the ideal life that you want to have and choose what you want to work with. Like I feel so blessed to be able to work on the things that I want to work on inside of the business and have right now, if I made a decision, if I woke up tomorrow and I was like, well, I just don't want to do this anymore, which isn't going to happen. But if I did, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I would be able to write a list of all of these very, very viable different paths I can go down, most of which would result in me earning no less personal money than I earn right now. But it's really then a choice of like, how do I actually want to spend my time? And so I think actually the freedom of choice part is far more valuable than the freedom of time. Like freedom of time is kind of irrelevant. Like, why would we want freedom of time completely? Because we would just be bored out of our brains. Entrepreneurs, you got to be building something. You got to be doing something. Like if you have more than 2 days off, you're like, fuck, I need to get back to work. I need to do something. I'm not excited about having a 6-day vacation. I would be, it's a week-long vacation. That seems stressful, man. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I'll be thinking about, I'll have so many ideas that I just want to get onto my laptop and start thinking about them. So freedom of time is kind of irrelevant, but freedom of choice, that's the big one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, what's freedom of time? That's just a trust fund, baby. Right? Like, how many of those guys are happy?
No, miserable.
Yeah,
miserable. I mean, maybe when we're old and retired and like we just want to watch our grandchildren running around, then maybe, you know. But then why does Granddad have the workshop where he's tinkering on some little engine somewhere? We need something. There has to be something there.
Yeah, it's about purpose, is it not?
It's about purpose. I think it's more about growth.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think it's about having something that's always demonstrating growth. You just know in yourself that you're progressing. I always called it the obsession with progression. Because purpose is one thing. Like, I feel deeply fulfilled in what I'm achieving, and I feel like I'm driven by a specific outcome. But that's still, when you boil it back down, is just growth.
Yeah.
It is just growth.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Am I moving forward, or am I moving backwards? And we're just fundamentally unhappy or unfilled when we are moving, when we're either staying where we are or we're moving backwards.
I don't even think it's moving backwards. I think it's more being stagnant and not knowing what to do next. Because even if you're moving backwards, but you're trying to go forward.
Correct.
So I think it's...
But then you're not moving backwards.
Oh, I suppose. Okay.
Because mentally you're moving forwards. But you could be moving away, you could be moving backward financially, but then
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perceived growth.
It's perceived growth. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, because when I think about like the times when I was least happy, those times are like, what do I fucking do? I don't know what to do. Whereas now, even if I'm like, and she can attest to this, like, I'll be like, fuck, dude, like the invoice isn't in, my Stripe account shut down, or like, fuck, I can't get the money, like, where is it? I can't get it into the Indonesian, like, all that stuff. It's like, I'm not necessarily like unhappy. I'm just irritated in the pursuit of growth. Whereas like, I think that's a very fine line where it's like, I'm not depressed. I'm not sad. Like, I know what the next steps are, so I just do them.
I completely agree. I don't think it's possible for me to be depressed. I don't believe in depression being something that I can experience.
Yeah.
But can I be frustrated? And do you go through periods where things aren't materializing in the way that you want them to be? Always. And that's subjective. You could be a billionaire and still be going through months, if not years, of periods where you're like, this just isn't working. Yeah. Whereas from the outset, you perceptionally have everything that you've ever wanted. And so the one thing we cannot escape as entrepreneurs is that we will be fighting fires every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But fundamentally, that's what makes us tick.
Yeah.
We want the challenge. We want it to be a little hard. We want it to be very hard because that's where we feel the most growth.
Yeah.
When everything's easy, when everything's plain sailing, and I have had many, many periods in entrepreneurship. I had this period, well, I basically retired for like 2 years. We were doing like 150K a month in profit. I met a new girl. I was like, I'm done. I remember having this conversation. I was like, oh, I've just like made it now. This is what I genuinely thought. I've just like made it now. And like, I'm just like, and I've achieved everything I want to achieve. Now I just want to like settle down and enjoy it. And I had this 2-year period where I basically retired and I didn't really do a lot. And I just experienced, and I say I didn't do a lot. I did lots of other stuff that wasn't loads of business things. And I come out of that period and I was like, what have I been doing? I need to get back into this. I need to get back in the trenches. I need to do this. I've been missing. I felt like unfilled at the end of this period. I was like, why haven't I been doing this? But it's not about having or being able to, you get to a point where it's not about being able to achieve what you originally set out to achieve, which is I want to be free, I want to make loads of money. It becomes about where can I find the challenge? Where can I find something new to get into? If things are too good for too long, they don't feel good anymore. You feel unfilled. You feel unsatisfied. You're like, what am I going to do? Just like go out and go here and go on holidays and drink and do this. Like, why? Like, I need something challenging. I need something to get my teeth stuck into.
It's like you said on the break. It's contrast, right? What feels good is compared to what felt bad. Mm-hmm. And so like, even if you feel bad and you get that growth, it doesn't necessarily like you understand that it feels bad, but it's motivating.
100%. 100%. You have to have the contrast. The highs don't feel good unless you've got the lows. Yeah. Then you're just flatlining. Yeah. You need something to compare it to. You need to be like, fuck yeah, 6 months ago that was pretty shit, but now this is pretty good. This feels amazing. Yeah. Whereas in absence of that, it's just like, well, okay, well things have been good for like years, and when things feel good for years, then it's you're stagnating.
I think the other thing that's like so weird being an entrepreneur is like 2 years, even a year ago, like every time I'm like, fuck, but like, am I making progress? I just look back and go, no, yeah, okay, progress. And then that just remotivates you.
I just think people put too much pressure on, or put hold too much value on financial progress.
No, that's true.
Because you can have a very successful business for a very long time. You might go through a lull period where your profits are diminished whilst you're putting your energy into some other new thing that you've never done before, and you're putting that growth into somewhere else, and naturally your energy isn't focused on finances because you're not motivated by money the whole time. You're making money, but then all of a sudden you're kind of like, oh well, what else? So you learn something new and your energy comes away from it. So you very much will flow over a period of time. Money will come and money will go as long as like you're still, I mean, you're in a good position.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think people hold too much of their self-worth on how much money they've got and forget that beyond a certain point, we're all the same and we have the same. Beyond a certain point, we can all do the same. So growth is far beyond just what the financial balance is that you have.
I feel like as a dude, though, so we're very competitive, right? Guys just, at least from my experience, are very competitive. Like they want to see who's the best, who's better at this. And I think money is the only thing that they can really tangibly compare against themselves. Because what other metric do you have that is like, this is the thing that we are comparing ourselves? Like if you're in real estate, you can do houses, but that doesn't compare against like an agency owner. You can't compare clients. Like they're not apples to apples. It's like apples to oranges. Whereas like money is money, or like you can try to compare happiness, but it's kind of like you can't really measure it.
I genuinely couldn't give a shit.
Fair enough.
I used to.
Yeah.
I used to. It used to light a fire up my ass for years.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't give a shit now. I find so much deep satisfaction in other people's success.
Yeah.
Like I love it. And because I've got everything that I need and sure, I'm still motivated by an exit and so on, but like I do not compare myself from a status perspective on money at all. For me, I find so much strength in not caring about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm past it. It's been so many years that I've met so many rich people and so many people above me and so many people below me from a finance. I just don't care. It doesn't bother me. But I do think it's a fire that motivated me very deeply at the start.
Yeah.
And probably for the first like 5 years, it's like that comparison of like, how can I get like that? How can I do this? How can I do? But then you realize that there's so much more depth to success. There's so much more. It's like you can make money and you could have an OnlyFans agency with no morals and make so much cash. Yeah. Are you a better man than me? Fuck no.
Yeah.
Fuck no. Are you contributing to society? No, you're not. Do you have the same morals and ethics as me? No. I don't look at you and in not a single part of my body compares myself to you because you're not the same man as I am.
Yeah.
So I'm more thinking about like, who are you? What are your values? What do you believe in? What is your impact? What drives you? You know, what's your soul like? How much wisdom do you have? Yeah. I think money is very fickle.
I agree. That's one thing that always bugs me. Like, I feel like I compare myself to people as well. Like, but I try not to. I think it's one of those things that you just have to kind of wean out over time, though. Right? Yeah. Because especially in the beginning, especially when you have no money, you're like, fuck, dude, this guy makes more than me. This guy makes 60. This guy makes 80. Or like, especially at the beginning, I feel like that's just like, that's how it is. That's how you're internally wired, and you have to unwire that as well.
I agree.
And then on the morals part, that's a really hard one as well, because that gets into a whole different conversation of like, where do we draw the line? What's contributing? What's not contributing?
Agree. I think you only care about comparing yourself over the financial figure though, and when you feel like you don't have enough yourself. And you can't dictate what that a number is going to be. But at some point, you're going to feel like you've got enough. And so then it becomes about everything else. I have friends who make 5 million a month. And there's not a single part of me that looks at them as like, you little fuck, like, why you've got this? Why are you there? And I'm not here. And you're the same as me, but I'm smarter than you. And it's not a single part of me that does that. I look at them with so much love and admiration. I'm like, you're awesome, man. That's amazing. But I'm very rational. Like, they're in a different vehicle, and they're 10 years older than me, and they've done this and they've done that. And lots of logic comes into it that takes it away from that. I'm more interested and so much more deeply impressed by someone that holds the same morals as I do and holds the same values. Like, do they care about their customers? Are they just a good person? Are they great to be around? Do I enjoy their company? Do I respect them as a human? And I think there's so much more to everything than that financial figure. And I think that becomes beyond a certain financial amount. So when you have enough money yourself, when there are certain tick boxes that people want. Maybe it's like they want to have a house so they've got security. They want to have, a car. Maybe they want a couple of status items like watches, whatever that. Because if you're motivated by money, you're likely motivated by the status symbols as well. So once you then have them, it's like, okay, well, I walk into most rooms with most normal people, and I'm in the top, percentile of the people that are inside that room. And I believe, do we have to start the camera again? Or are we good? Okay.
We're good.
Cool.
Yeah.
I believe that once you get beyond that, at least from my experience, you no longer care. Because there's not much more to it. It's just Monopoly. And then it's just a game.
Yeah.
And so why would the game not be just against yourself, about your own improvement? Because you can't, there is no value in comparing yourself to someone else's experience when you haven't gone through the same experience that they have gone through in life. You weren't born in the same place as them. You don't have the same mentality. You don't have the same friends. You don't have the same family. You don't have the same circumstances. So what value is there in comparing yourself to someone else's financial position who lives in a completely different existence to you do? So the only comparison from a financial perspective, once you're at a place that you want to actually be, should be against yourself. It's the only thing that you've got.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the morals one is so hard. So hard.
Yeah, the morals one's a big one, man. I've limited my revenue for years for morals.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of it. And I know one day I'll look back on it all, and I do now. But I know, like, when I'm older, I will be like,
I'm glad,
man. I'm fucking glad. I'm a man of my word.
Yeah.
I believe what I believe to be real.
That's one thing that I find really weird. I come from two different parents with two very different sets of morals. And so, like, she can attest. Like, one, I'm like, fuck, dude. Like, that's terrible morals. And one, I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. But the problem is, like, you can stick to one that I believe in. I'm a man of my word. And I feel better for it as well. But then you also have the temptation of, bro, I could just make 3 times more. And I think that's something that you just need to, like, get over.
Yeah.
Like, I think if I just stick to my morals for longer, I can make enough where I'm like, fuck the money, bro.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it depends on who you are.
Yeah.
Like, there are many people that just don't hold morals to any regard.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah.
So they can just buck loads of people over, make loads of money, and actually find it quite funny.
Yeah.
And so that's
the OnlyFans agency, guys.
Exactly. And that's cool. If that's you, then do your thing. Like, do your thing. That's all good.
Yeah.
But it isn't me.
Yeah.
And so if you are the kind of person that it would bother you, and that's not a weakness, that's a strength.
Yeah.
Because it's just who do I want to be? What do I want for my family? What do I want for my children? And if I wouldn't do that, if I wouldn't want my children to do that, if I wouldn't want the people around me to know that I did that, then why the fuck would I do it for money?
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with that. The one thing, like, I have one client in the past that I'm just not proud that I have as a client, or had as a client, and I let him go, and I'm just like, dude, like, I'm so glad it's in my past. I will never fucking do that again. So I could definitely see that as, like, a learning opportunity.
Yeah, you have to teeter on the edge to know what's good and bad.
Exactly.
Oh, there's been many experiences that I've had that have made me think, oh no, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
So you have to teeter on the edge to know what is good and bad, for sure.
True. Yeah. It's so hard, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fun
it's
one.
It's the test. It's
is
the test.
So we only have 3 minutes. So I'm gonna ask you, where do you want to send people?
Wherever they want to go, they can go over to my YouTube channel and watch some videos. And
Now your LinkedIn?
Oh, well, you can go to my LinkedIn if you like, but if you go to my YouTube, then hopefully my marketing is good enough that you'll be damned in my funnel for eternity. So if you go to YouTube Jordan Platten, then you'll find some stuff there, and maybe you'll see me on LinkedIn.
I mean, you might find retargeting ads if I'm correct.
Yeah, you might get some retargeting ads. We'll see. Maybe there's some surprises in there for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Cool.